warm welcome to you all. I am Vikas Nangia with Focus Live Season 3. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today on the program is a leading interventional cardiologist. He's also the chief medical officer of one of the renowned hospitals here in New Jersey. Tonight on the program, we speak to him in capacity of an author. He's written a book called COVID Slayers. My guest on the program is Dr. Rajesh Mohan. Dr. Mohan, thank you so very much for joining us in Focus Live Season 3.
Thank you, Vikas, for having me. It's a great opportunity, and I look forward to having this conversation.
Yes, I indeed look forward to this, conversation. I've been expressing my gratitude to all the individuals who've been on the front line. So, lots of regards to you in that context. You've been on the front line from the very beginning when the pandemic just started. People started worrying about the whole situation. So, you've been around for a long time. But let me start asking you about the book. So, what really inspired you to write this book, and why the name COVID Slayers?
So let's start with the name. I'm from Delhi. We are by nature, I think, we do not take anything lying down. We are, we take up challenges. We, enjoy the challenges and try to get over them. And this is a once in 100-year pandemic, as we all know. So with all the training, the excellent healthcare that America has over the past over 2 decades that I've been here as far as practicing as an interventional cardiologist, in my mind, there was no reason why so many American deaths have had to happen. Just recently, we crossed the 300,000 mark. These were, in my mind, and many leading epidemiologists, many leading physicians, this did not have to happen. So I was seeing patients, and I'm still seeing patients on the front line and treating them, as well as trying to give them the best treatment strategies that we can come up with. And I thought that the American people, every common person, needs to know the truth. So that's why I wrote the book. I wanted everyone to know what exactly happened on the front line, as well as the planning and the missteps and what we can learn from this so that it never happens again. This is not such a big problem that we could not have dealt with in the right manner. There was no need for so many thousands of people to die.
So, is the book purely on the basis of observation, or something that you have as a fact check to back it up as well?
So in the book, you will see that there are close to 20 pages of bibliography. So this is a very well researched book with over 130 references. So this is not a made up stuff. This is well researched with the advantage of the personal experiences that I've had personally, as well as my colleagues, physicians who've been doing this day in and day out. Most importantly, because I'm the chief medical officer, other than the physician, I'm also on the administrative part. So I know what behind the scenes planning was, or the lack thereof, at every level, right from the federal level, the state level, to the hospital level, local community levels. I can go on. I think if we had planned in a concerted, strategic way, we would have done much, much better. And it's not over yet. The vaccines are out, but by the time most Americans get their vaccine, it'll be another 6 months.
Yeah.
So if we do not have a cohesive strategy in combating this pandemic, there could be another 200, 300,000 people dead by the time everybody gets vaccines, which will be in about 4 to 6 months. So I think it's not over yet. We need to know exactly what's going on and then correct it. Because if we do not own up on the mistakes that have happened, and if we do not realize them, then we'll keep on committing the same mistakes again. And there's no need to do that.
Many people, talk about that there's a lot of politics involved in this whole situation. While you were writing this book and, you were interacting with people, you were doing your bit of research, what is it that you discovered? Is there, a lot of politics that was involved in this as well?
Without a doubt. And healthcare should be left to the professionals, to the doctors and nurses. Once we get politics involved, once we get financial considerations involved, and people who are making policies and implementing policies do not have any first-hand experience on the front lines, do not have the medical knowledge, or like I say, intellectual capital, which is a combination of medical knowledge, training, work experience, then you are not going to come up with the best strategies, no matter how good your intentions are. I'm not saying that these are bad people. They all have good intentions, but they did not come up with the correct strategies. They did not realize the problem early enough. They tried to downplay the problem. We as physicians and nurses in the healthcare system, we knew how big this problem was. In January, we knew it was an airborne spread in addition to contact and spread and droplet spread. Way back in March, there were MIT professors who were actually saying that this is airborne, it can be spread through the air and not just by droplet or touch. So there were a lot of missteps. The people who knew it, they were not heard at the beginning. And I think even right now, I know there's a new government coming in, and I think they need to hear the people who are actually on the front lines, who have the experience, especially now we've almost 9-10 months into the pandemic. We can definitely learn from our mistakes.
In your opinion, where did we fail and what are the challenges forward?
Sure. So if you heard in the news way back in March, everybody was talking about ventilators. That was sensational. It was great. But nobody was talking about COVID tests. They were talking, but not so much. Nobody was talking about N95 masks, that everybody should be wearing masks. You heard conflicting statements from some health officials saying you should wear a mask, some not, you don't need to. We don't need to do tests, or we need to do less tests. If you do not diagnose a disease, how will you treat it? How will you manage it appropriately? It's common sense for us medical professionals, maybe not for the policymakers or the administrators. So I think right at the get-go, number one, they did not realize the gravity of the problem. A pandemic is a big deal. The whole world is infected or affected, and most of the people are infected. That is why it's called a pandemic, because it spreads throughout the world. And it's an infectious pandemic. So common sense would tell you, how does an infection spread? You have to wash your hands. You have to keep distance from people, physical distance. They kept on saying social distance. I always say keep physical distance. Don't keep social distance. You should be socially interactive. Keep physical distance.
Yeah.
And obviously masks. So the testing, the PPE, those were the things that needed to be talked about first. And what happened as a result was that the public officials, the health officials, they lost the trust of the people. When you give conflicting messages, you lose the trust. And so nobody followed what they started saying 3-4 months later. And they're still not following. So if you look at the national polls, it's almost a 50-50 spread between people who want to wear masks or people who do not believe that they should wear a mask. So you have to gain the trust of people, and you have to have consistent messaging. And most importantly, I think you have to tell them the truth. And if you waver from the truth and the reality, then you've lost the game right at the get-go, even before the match has begun.
While answering one of my questions, you also mentioned that many people who knew it, they were not heard well. So are you indirectly saying that they were suppressed?
Sure. I mean, the physicians, like I said, us, there were a lot of physicians across the country. It started off in China when the unfortunate physician died. He was a whistleblower. But we expect those kind of things in China.
Yeah.
We should not expect those kind of things in a free democratic society like ours in the US. So when the professionals, the experts are saying that this is bad, and then you go over them just because to further your own agendas, whatever they may be, then you're doing a disservice to the American people, and you're not doing right by them. You're just putting them in jeopardy, which is what happened, unfortunately. And for a large reason, it can actually continue to happen if the health policies are not corrected. Healthcare in the U.S. is not one of the best. I've worked in India, and I have friends who work in Europe. Healthcare in the U.S. is the best in the world. There's no doubt about it. But healthcare administration, it basically was really found wanting when the biggest crisis in 100 years hit us. And I think history will judge that we, as medical professionals, nurses, doctors, respiratory therapists, everybody, went above and beyond, in spite of the fact that there were so many hurdles in our way. Not because of the virus. We could take care of the virus. We are taking care of the virus even right now, but because of the administrative policies and the public policies that were made by the administrators and the politicians.
तो यहाँ मैं आपका रिएक्शन ये चाहता हूँ, इससे पहले मैं ब्रेक की ओर बढ़ूँ, आपका रिएक्शन ये चाहता हूँ कि क्या हम अपनी गलतियों से सीखें, और when we move forward, now that the vaccination is out there, what is it that you'd like to guide our viewers?
Sure. तो पहला तो सब लोगों को समझना चाहिए कि जैसे वेंटिलेटर्स के बारे में बात कर रहे थे हम लोग मार्च में, अभी हर कोई चैनल आप खोलिए वैक्सीन के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. सब लोगों को वैक्सीन अभी नहीं मिल रहा है, सिर्फ हेल्थ केयर प्रोफेशनल्स को मिल रहा है और नर्सिंग होम रेजिडेंट्स को मिल रहा है. तो जो अबाउट 20-25 मिलियन लोग हैं पूरे कंट्री में, बाकी जो 300 मिलियन है उन लोगों को वैक्सीन अभी नहीं मिल रहा. जब तक मिलेगा, कम से कम नहीं तो एंड ऑफ फर्स्ट क्वार्टर, सेकंड क्वार्टर, जून तक होगा.
राइट.
तो तब तक हम क्या करें? तब तक अनदर 2-3 लाख लोगों की मरने की जरूरत नहीं है. तो तब तक हम लोगों को एक तो मास्क पहनना चाहिए. मास्क एकदम साइंटिफिक स्टडीज आ चुकी हैं, 100% प्रूफ आ चुका है कि अगर आप मास्क पहनेंगे तो ये नहीं कि आप दूसरों को नहीं इन्फेक्ट करेंगे, खुद भी कम इन्फेक्शन होता है. तो दोनों लोगों का फायदा होता है. तो मास्क सबसे पहला इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है. दूसरा, हाथ धोइए जब भी आप कोई चीज छुइए. स्टडीज आई थी मार्च में कि अगर प्लास्टिक पे अगर वायरस हो तो वो 3 दिन तक रहता है. तो अगर आप कहीं जा रहे हैं और आपने कहीं प्लास्टिक का बोतल या कुछ भी पकड़ा हो, किसी और ने उसको पकड़ा होगा, वायरस छोड़ गया होगा, आपको नहीं पता, तो आप हाथ धोइए. और तीसरा, कम से कम नहीं तो 6 फीट का फासला रखिए. क्योंकि अगर वायरस किसी के पास होता है, वो हवा में जाता है, या कोई खांसता है, वो हवा में जाती है हवा, और वायरस उसके साथ. तो अगर आप दूर होंगे तो जब तक कि वो वायरस का क्वांटिटी आप तक पहुंचेगा, कुछ बीच में गिर जाएगा, कुछ सारा आपके पास नहीं आएगा. तो डोज से भी फर्क पड़ता है कि आप अगर दूर होंगे तो कम वायरस मिलेगा, और चांसेस ये है कि अगर आपके पास इम्यूनिटी ठीक है तो आप वो थोड़ा बहुत वायरस, आपकी इम्यूनिटी उसको ओवरकम कर लेगी और आपको इन्फेक्शन नहीं होगा. तो ये 3 चीजें बहुत जरूरी है. और इसके लिए ये नहीं है कि आप हर किसी से दूर रहिए, आप घर में बैठे रहिए और कुछ मत करिए, आप बाहर जाइए, मगर कॉमन सेंस, थोड़ा दूर रहिए. किसी के साथ ज्यादा देर तक आप कोई अगर जान पहचान का नहीं हो तो उससे आपको आधा घंटे की बात करने की जरूरत नहीं है. तो आप रेस्टोरेंट में जाइए, खाइए, मगर मास्क पहनिए, हाथ धोइए और दूर रहिए. तो उससे जब तक कि आपको वैक्सीन मिले, आप अपने आप को तो प्रोटेक्ट करेंगे, मगर अपने फैमिली मेंबर्स को भी प्रोटेक्ट करेंगे, अपने जान पहचान लोगों को भी प्रोटेक्ट करेंगे.
डॉक्टर मोहन, रेस्टोरेंट की आपने बात करी, तो उससे जुड़ी जो इंडोर डाइनिंग को लेकर के भी काफी सवाल हो रहे हैं, और अभी जो सेकंड वेव की बात हो रही है, इट सीम्स लाइक अप्रैल और मई में जो परिस्थिति थी, इस वक्त उससे कहीं ज्यादा लग रहा है कि हॉस्पिटल्स में बेड की सिचुएशन वापस वैसी है या उससे भी ज्यादा चुनौतीपूर्ण है. और सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि जो रिपोर्ट्स आ रही हैं, और आपने भी इस बात को कहा कि आने वाले 5-6 महीने जो हैं, they're going to be much more challenging. हो सकता है कि 2 से 3 लाख लोगों की और जान जा सकती है. अब बड़ी बात ये है कि जब हम निरंतर इस बात पर जोर देते आ रहे हैं कि क्या कुछ हमने अपनी गलतियों से सीखा, ये प्रिकॉशंस और प्रोविजंस लेना तो आप एक तरफ से समझ रहे हैं, लेकिन लोग क्या कुछ ऐसा है जो नजरअंदाज कर रहे हैं, जिस तरह से इंडोर डाइनिंग का भी जिक्र आ रहा है, कुछ गेट टुगेदर्स का जिक्र आ रहा है, प्रोटेस्ट रैलीज हुई इतनी सारी, ब्लैक लाइव्स मैटर को लेकर के बहुत सारी ऐसी प्रोटेस्ट रैलीज हुई, इकोनॉमी को लेकर के रैलीज हुई। क्या कुछ ऐसे कारण हैं जिनकी वजह से सेकंड वेव में भी हम लोग पहली वेव से ज्यादा बदतर हालत में हैं?
तो मैंने ये किताब में भी लिखा, अगर आप स्पेनिश फ्लू जो इन्फ्लुएंजा 1918 1919 का अगर आप देखें, तो जो सेकेंड वेव था वो पहले वेव से ज्यादा खतरनाक था, और लोग मरे थे। एक्चुअली उसमें एक थर्ड वेव भी था जो स्प्रिंग और समर 1919 में आया, उसमें भी पहले वेव से ज्यादा लोग मरे थे। तो जिस हिसाब से अभी जा रहा है, second wave is actually turning out to be already worse than the first wave.
Yeah.
So going the same path pretty much as 1918, 1919. It does not have to be that way. Problem क्या है कि जितने ये public health officials, politicians हैं, they talk in extremes. या तो पूरा लॉकडाउन कर देंगे, या आप सारे रेस्टोरेंट्स बंद कर देंगे, या एकदम खोल देंगे और पूल पार्टीज हो रही हैं और बीच में लोग जा रहे हैं। और there's a common sense way. We can do it in between. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, like the saying goes. If you are taking these three precautions, which I mentioned, and you are using common sense measures, you're not congregating in like with 50, 100 people for extended periods of time, then the chances of infection will be less. If there are less infections, there'll be less people who get sick. There'll be less number of people who end up getting into the hospitals. And as a result, there'll be less people who will die. It's common sense. One thing leads to the other.
We'll take a quick short break over here. On the other side of the break, we'll take some questions from our viewers as well and take the conversation forward. We'll be right back after these messages.
Even when we can't all be together, holiday traditions mean being with the ones we love the most. Send your love and a taste of home with the gift of Omaha Steaks. Families depend on Omaha Steaks to deliver unforgettable holidays. The very best steaks, seafood, chops, and more. Omaha Steaks for the holidays, a delicious family tradition. Your love delivered. Order now as a gift or free.
When you think of DraftKings, you might think sports, but there's so much more. DraftKings used their top-of-the-line technology to create a mobile casino app for a new way to get skin in the game, offering all the games you love, including blackjack, roulette, slots, and more. Download the DraftKings Casino app to play casino games for real cash prizes. New casino players can play DraftKings Casino and get a 100% instant first deposit match up to $250. So don't wait. Download the DraftKings Casino app today.
Home away from home.
Some people say dress your age. That's ridiculous. I dress how I feel. Yesterday, I felt bold with boundless energy. This morning, I woke up calm and unbreakable. Tomorrow, who knows? Age is just an illusion. How you show up for the world, that's what's real. What's your idea? I put it out there with the GoDaddy website. Make the world you want.
Arey, why so sad?
Can't believe they're both in college already. They grow up too fast.
Aha, empty nest syndrome.
Our lives would be so quiet and lonely now.
Are you kidding me? We need to celebrate our new freedom. I have planned a special date night for us this evening.
A date night.
That's right. We are opening up a bottle of wine, one of the good ones which we have been hiding from the kids. We are getting dressed up and we are going to go out for a fancy dinner. And one more thing. I was going to wait till tonight, but you need some cheering up right now.
This is beautiful.
Let's enjoy ourselves while we still have a chance. The way things are these days, before we know it, kids will be moving back in with us.
ब्रेक के बाद फोकस लाइव सीजन 3 में आप सबका एक बार फिर से स्वागत। आज बातचीत हो रही है रिनाउंड इंटरवेंशनल कार्डियोलॉजिस्ट डॉक्टर राजेश मोहन के साथ, और खास उनकी किताब कोविड स्लेयर्स पर बातचीत हो रही है, जिसके अंदर उन्होंने काफी सारी रिसर्च करके कोविड से जुड़ी, ये जो पैंडेमिक से जुड़े अलग अलग पहलुओं पर उन्होंने अपनी विचारों को रखा है। डॉक्टर मोहन, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग अस अगेन इन दिस episode of Focus Live. One of the things that I read in your book, and which is indeed the fact as well, that a lot of individuals who lost their lives, they lost their lives in isolation. There is a chapter in which you really talk about that, if a patient gets to meet his family members, there are a lot of chances of recovery. There's a sense of belongingness over there. और कोविड के फेज में ऐसा हुआ कि बहुत से लोग आइसोलेशन में, उनके घर परिवार वाले उनसे मिल नहीं सकते थे, यहाँ तक कि मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंट के दौरान में फ्रंट लाइन पे भी डॉक्टर्स, क्योंकि हाथ यू वर ऑल लोडेड विद लॉट ऑफ पेशेंट्स अराउंड यू, तो बहुत से लोग उन तक पहुंच भी नहीं पा रहे थे। उससे जुड़े जो कुछ फैक्ट्स हैं, आई वुड लाइक टू गेट योर रिएक्शन ऑन दैट।
Yeah, that is a very powerful chapter in the book, I think. And I'm not saying this because I wrote it, but everybody who has read the book today, nurses have actually come to me crying, said I cried when I read that chapter. Family members who have read those chapters, everybody, male, female, they've actually they've become really emotional when they read it. And that is the truth that needs to go out to the common man. One thing, while writing this book, I did not want this to be a medical book or a medical policy book or a policy wonk book. I wanted every common man to be able to understand what's going on. And that is the perspective that I took while writing this book, because I believe everybody needs to know the truth. I have seen firsthand myself when it's like solitary isolation. It is a crime. It's totally inhumane in my mind. And that is why the chapter of the book is the inhumane visitor policy. There is nowhere it says that just because you have COVID, you have to be in isolation for 10, 14, 15 days and not get to see your family or family members. There is no data to show that if a family member, a son or a daughter goes and visits their mother or father, that they will spread the infection to the community. You provide them with proper PPE. You provide them with N95. You can have an escort who takes them after a full PPE, gown, N95 to the room. And they will be fully protected. They can spend quality time with their family members, 20, 30 minutes once a day, and then take off the PPE and go home. You're not going to spread infection, or even if you are, nothing is 100%, but the risk is negligible. It's very low. So it did not have to be this way. It's happening even right now. And that's why I've had meetings with my colleagues. It's not coming from physicians. It is not coming from nurses. It is mainly coming whoever is making up these policies. And whoever is making up these policies, they have not been on the front line. They haven't seen the pain and the anguish of the patients or the family members, or both. There are people who are dying alone after spending 7 or 10 days in the hospital. It is inhumane. It's criminal in my mind. It should not happen this way. And the reason why is that a made up, without any data, without any evidence, theory that the one family member who comes and visits the patient will spread the infection. Or we cannot provide enough PPE. We are 9 months into the pandemic, or more now, actually. There is no reason to not have adequate PPE, adequate number of N95 masks at this late game in this pandemic. There is no reason. And that is not an excuse to not let any family member have visitation with their sick and loved ones. There have been evidence, on multiple studies have been done, that if a family member visits the patients or has contact with the patients get better soon. They get better earlier. there's enough evidence out there. That's a known fact in medicine. So to keep the family members away from the sick patient, it is wrong on so many levels. And I think that needs to be corrected and corrected soon.
Yeah. Allow me to take some video questions now. This question that I'm taking is of a gentleman called Prakhar Ghosh. Take a listen. We'd appreciate your reaction to it.
I just wanted to give my heartfelt, sincere thanks to the medical fraternity who is, fighting for our lives and are on the forefront. So big salute to them. And coming back to my questions, I've got two actually. And the first question being the statistics of people returning home safely after being, infected with the virus and turning positive, getting treated and returning home, vis-a-vis the fatalities that we see. Is that an encouraging trend? The second, rather more important question is that eventually I think we all will get infected, and the only way we can, really at an individual basis, we can fight the disease is, fortify ourselves, our immune system. So that was my real question, is that how do we really take care of ourselves and make sure that even if we do get infected, our body, our immune system is capable enough to, fight this deadly virus. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for the questions. I think these are very relevant, very, very relevant questions. So most importantly, I think as far as the mortality rates, let me just go over that first. That was the first question. In the beginning, in the first few months, first few weeks, the mortality rate was close to 30% in New York and New Jersey, and it continued in other states as well. And in my mind, I've been one of the proponents of early treatment rather than late treatment. Everybody was saying, the public health officials were saying, they're still saying that go to the hospital, seek medical attention only if you're very sick. That just flies in the face of any medical science, medical knowledge. हर किसी को पता है कि अगर आप जल्दी अपने आप को medical attention दे पाएंगे, जब आपकी sickness शुरू होती है तो आप जल्दी डॉक्टर के पास जाएंगे तो आपकी diagnosis जल्दी होगी, treatment जल्दी होगी, आप बेहतर जल्दी होगे. So that is the process that should have been taken for COVID as well. So people who are sitting at home with mild illness, moderate illness, it's like playing Russian roulette with your life. Some people, most of them, they do get better. But some people, significant percentage of them, they get so bad that they come in crashing to the hospital. And when they come crashing to the hospital, then their mortality rates are higher. So we can treat them early. We can manage them early. Most of it is supportive treatment. Now we have some medications like steroids, like the monoclonal antibodies that President Trump, Governor Christie, and other folks got. There are other treatments that we use. So if we use that early, convalescent plasma, we were one of the centers of convalescent plasma, major centers of convalescent plasma in New Jersey. And we started giving them early rather than when they crashed and they were on a ventilator. And we found, and these are preliminary data, these are observational, this is not a randomized controlled trial, but we found that if we gave them early, whether it was plasma or any other treatment, then the outcomes were better, the patients lived. So now the mortality rate has gone into the single digits, it's less than 10%. Some places it's 5%, 7, 8, 9%, but in that range. It's definitely better than 30%. But if people want to get better, they should seek medical attention early rather than late. So that is good.
One of the reasons, before you answer the second part of the question, I think, Dr. Mohan, one of the reasons that people still hold themselves because they're afraid of being in that environment, where because they are all kept in a particular area where the COVID patients are treated. So, there's always a fear. So that mindset is very difficult for them to come and accept that. Nobody knows also that what the treatment is going to be like, and so that's another reason. Now, of course, we are, after 9 or 10, 11 months, there is some sense of clarity and some protocols that have been advised and followed by the hospitals. But I think earlier a lot of people were really holding themselves also because obviously there was all kinds of news speculations were out over there that हॉस्पिटल में क्या हो रहा है किसी को पता नहीं है. इससे अच्छा है कि घर में थोड़े थोड़े प्रिकॉशंस ले लो, देसी नुस्खे अपना लो और ठीक होने की कोशिश करो. उस वजह से भी बहुत से लोग हॉस्पिटल गए नहीं, और जब गए तो बहुत देरी से गए. What's your take on that?
No, I agree, and इसीलिए I always say that the messaging was wrong, and the messaging was wrong and counterproductive from the public health officials. और इसीलिए आम आदमी को क्या पता, आम आदमी तो वही करेगा जो उसको बोला गया पब्लिक हेल्थ ऑफिशियल से, या अपना दिमाग यूज करेगा. So one thing that I've learned that we say that going into medicine is a calling, and it's become a cliche. My personal experience has been, the private practitioners, nurses, employees, they didn't have to do this. They didn't have to come and see these patients. They didn't have to get a regular paycheck. In my hospital and in other hospitals, there are a lot of private practitioners. They could have just sat home. They had made enough money. But they came in and they saw those patients. They put themselves at risk. They put their family members at risk because they could carry the infection home. But they did it. So I believe it is not just a cliche. It is a real deal. And I've seen it personally across the board amongst all physicians, nurses, respiratory therapists. You have to see what they do to really realize what they went through. There were nurses in gowns with masks, gloves, all day long, 12 hours in the sweat, and the tears that they were going through with every single patient. You cannot forget that once you see it. And I think they went above and beyond. So I really appreciate your viewers' comments on that, because that is a fact. And I talk a lot about that in the book and the first-hand experiences of all the healthcare professionals, right from the environmental services people to the registration person and the ER desk, everybody. They didn't have to be there. They could have just sat at home and get their, unemployment checks. But they did come to the hospital, and they did they went above and beyond what they needed to do. Before I get more emotional about this or passionate about this, I'll try to answer the second question of the gentleman. So yes, you can build up your immunity. Again, this is a pandemic. It's happening very fast. So there is no time for randomized controlled placebo, trials which last for 2-3 years and then figure out what to do. We are taught in medical school the science. We know what builds your immunity, what doesn't. So eat healthy, take vitamin C. This is again, my opinion. This is not any medical advice that I'm giving free for, but these are all common sense things. And vitamin D3, which a lot of people are actually already doing. Some people are taking over-the-counter medications, zinc. But these are all over-the-counter medications which are accessible to everybody. Some people swear by it, some that it works definitely. Some people say that it's a waste of time. But these are not harmful medications. If you take vitamin C or zinc or vitamin D3, unless and until you're overdosing on them or taking the whole bottle, I haven't heard of people dying of zinc or vitamin C or vitamin D3. So these are things which people can actually take. They're over the counter, build up their immunity, eat healthy, exercise. So do not take any chances. Prevention is always better than cure.
एक छोटा सा ब्रेक लेते हैं और ब्रेक के उस पार कुछ वैक्सीन से जुड़े जो सवाल हैं, काफी सारे मिथ्स हैं, कुछ फैक्ट्स जिन पर आपसे चर्चा करना चाहता हूं. We'll do that. We'll take some more video questions of our viewers as well. We'll be right back after these myth news.
At touchofmodern.com, we get that the things you surround yourself with reflect who you are, your style, your drive, your passions, Venture through a curated collection of astonishing items at touchofmodern.com, because sometimes things aren't just things, they're you. Go to touchofmodern.com and discover the world's most unexpected items.
Welcome to Serenity Reserve, our premier boutique 55 plus active adult community. Only 3 minutes from Orlando and 15 minutes from Orlando International Airport. Where a healthy lifestyle is key. Our state-of-the-art amenities allow you to enhance your mind, body, and spirit. We have 4 beautiful models for you to choose from. Visit us online at serenityreserve.com or call today.
Advertise on TV Asia to promote your brand, products, or services. Call 732-650-1100 extension 26 or email info@tvasiausa.com.
Dr. Mohan, thank you once again for joining us in this segment of Focus Live, Season 3. वैक्सीनेशन से जुड़े बहुत से लोगों के मन में अलग अलग विचार हैं, मिथ्स हैं. कुछ तो लोग ऐसे भी हैं जो ज़रूरी नहीं कि हमारी कम्युनिटी से ही हो, साउथ एशियन अमेरिकन कम्युनिटी से ही हो, लेकिन अन्य कम्युनिटी से जो भी हैं, जो ट्रीटमेंट को, वैक्सीनेशन को लेकर के काफ़ी ऑर्थोडॉक्स अप्रोच रखते हैं. They're not in favor of taking that at all. Now, how risky or dangerous is that thought process?
Think of it in this way. Right now, in spite of the fact that the treatments are there and the medical management of COVID-19 has significantly improved over the past few months, the death rate is still, approximately 8-9%. So 1 out of 10 or 11 people who get COVID-19 will die. Is that a chance anybody wants to take? I don't think so. And any sane person would not take a 1 out of 10 chance to die just because you can, especially when you can avoid that. So, and then you have the vaccine situation. So vaccines, these go through rigorous safety trials. There's a big misconception out there that the vaccines that are coming out or have come out now, Pfizer and Moderna, that they were just made in a rush, that they just came out in the past 6 months, which is furthest from the truth. The new platform, which is the mRNA platform, the studies, scientific research has been ongoing for almost a decade. So this is not really a new concept. It is just that the vaccines are being made now using the research of the past 10 years, approximately. One of the other things which a lot of people also do not realize, unlike flu or HIV, because HIV there's no vaccines right now, COVID-19, although it is so lethal, it is easy to actually make a vaccine. It is easy to kill. Just think about it. You can actually kill the COVID-19 just by soap and water. That is all it takes for the virus to die. So the spike proteins that you see on the famous structure of the virus that everybody is now familiar with, all you have to do is knock off the spike. So it is an easy virus to make a vaccine against. And that is one of the reasons why vaccines are coming out so quickly. If it was a difficult virus to make vaccine against, we would be in pretty big trouble. But the virus is lethal, but it can be killed easily. So that is why the vaccines are coming out.
Yeah.
And the second part is that all these vaccines, they go through rigorous safety trials. So Pfizer came out, Moderna has come out now, and Johnson & Johnson, there are other companies, AstraZeneca are going to be coming out in January, February. They have done safety trials on thousands of people. For example, Pfizer came out with the safety trials are on 30 or 40,000 people. Same thing with Moderna. Same thing is going on with the other companies as well. So when you have the safety data, which is so robust, it's common sense, and I think it is smart to actually take the vaccine as opposed to taking a 1 in 10 or a 1 in 11 chance of dying. I think for me, it's a no-brainer.
Just a little while ago you used a phrase prevention is better than cure, और उसी को लेकर के जो सवाल जहन में आ रहा था वो ये कि a lot of people are not really understanding the vaccination that people are expecting to get in times to come. Is it prevention or is it a cure?
I think I'm glad you asked that question. That's a fantastic one, just for people to understand exactly what it is. So vaccine does not cure the virus, right? Because vaccine is given to healthy people who have no problems. I'm not saying no problems otherwise, but who do not carry the virus, who do not have COVID-19 infection, acute infection. So it is, once you get the vaccine, you fight off the virus. So it is prevention, just like you get flu vaccine, just like you get smallpox vaccine. It is to prevent a person from getting the dreaded COVID-19 infection and the consequences of that. So it is prevention of COVID-19 infection.
Allow me to take this video question from our view from Atlanta, Georgia. I guess she has something more specific related to cardiology. Take a listen.
Sure.
Thank you for taking my call. A blessing in disguise that we find out that the heart attack rate has reduced during this pandemic. This will also open up a total different door for the health industries to look at diseases in a new perspective. Even though the stress level, general stress level of the world and the fear around the world is high, but personal slowing down of the pace has helped people to look within themselves. Would this be a major indicator to look at health in a total different way? Because in the past it was the cholesterol is the problem, and now we hear cholesterol is not the problem. So can you please shed light on this?
Yeah, a lot of people have been talking about the collateral effects of COVID-19. And it is worthwhile, addressing that. And I'm glad the caller actually asked this question. So I'm being a cardiologist, I see cardiac patients on a very regular, or almost a daily basis. Heart disease is not like a throat infection. You get an infection now, 5 days away, it's fine. It's a progressive disease. High blood pressure, all these chronic diseases, they are progressive diseases. So granted that we see less number of folks rushing to the hospital with a heart attack. But there are also unknown number of people dying at home who did not go to the hospital because of the fear of COVID, or they did not want to get out of their homes because of the fear of COVID. And they were sitting at home and their diabetes worsened and their high blood pressure worsened and they gained weight and their cholesterol increased. And they were carrying some underlying heart disease, which got worse during this time. And unfortunately had tragic consequences. So we actually see that. And I've seen patients who've not been out of their houses or, being sitting at home watching TV, develop blood clots in their legs, and then which goes to the lungs, and then they end up with pulmonary embolism. It's not a heart attack, but it's a different disease. And they come into the hospital, in very, very critical situation. So, yes, we have to look at the whole healthcare. That is another thing which I talk about in the book is we have to look at the whole healthcare system, in a new way, in an outside the box way. And if we continue doing the same thing what we did in the past, we cannot continue what we were doing in the past because COVID basically exposed a lot of things. We learned a lot of good things, which we should implement, because if we don't, then what's the point? And we learned things which were not so good with our healthcare administration mainly. And if we do not correct that, then we'll be making the same mistakes. To answer your caller's questions directly, yes, they may not be having a heart attack in the past 6 to 9 months, but if they have been sitting at home and the cholesterol has been increasing, so there's no data that cholesterol is good or high cholesterol is good. I mean, we see a lot of stuff on the internet. Not everything is, accurate. And I don't believe any cardiologist or physician in their right mind would think that high cholesterol is good. There are variants of cholesterol, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. But when we look at the bad cholesterol, especially the LDL, if it is high, it is not good. It is not good for your heart. It is not good for the brain. I mean, people end up getting strokes because of carotid atherosclerosis, blockages in the carotids, and other places, including in the aorta. And obviously in the blood vessels supplying the heart, blood vessels supplying the legs where they have peripheral vascular disease. So you can have a lot of negative consequences, bad effects of a high cholesterol, sedentary lifestyle, uncontrolled diabetes, or poorly controlled diabetes, or poorly controlled high blood pressure. They add up. They add up, and then they hit you. So these are all chronic diseases. So just because more people are not showing up in the ER doesn't mean that heart disease has vanished from the country. I think we need to relook at that and make sure that if we are hit with an emergent situation or a situation like a pandemic, we do not neglect the other people who may be sitting at home. We need to be able to do both at the same time.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that as good as we should have.
And you've talked about that in the book as well. We're going to take a quick short break over here. On the other side of the break, I'd like to talk to you about a lot of people have started talking about, post-COVID, the side effects that they're developing in their body. You mentioned about clots in the body. I've spoken personally to a few individuals that I recall, highlighting and talking about that they've started feeling blood clots in their legs and, many other issues after post-COVID treatment. I want to get your expert opinion on that. We'll do that on the other side of the break.
Jim and Joanne are here to pick up the same prescription. They both know the system is not on their side. They both know drug costs are out of control. But one of them is taking back control with GoodRx. So while he's paying that much, even with his insurance, she's paying this much just by using GoodRx. Use GoodRx to compare prices at pharmacies in your area and stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today and take back control.
Right now, the world has never seemed more uncertain. The COVID-19 pandemic has plunged us all into uncharted territory, challenging our health, our livelihoods, our economies, and changing the way we live.
We've steered our customers through some of the toughest times in history, and we are well positioned to do so again.
For anyone preparing for their financial future, it's important to choose a partner that's successfully weathered what's come before. New York Life has been successfully navigating the unexpected for 175 years.
Some companies change to stay relevant. We're relevant because we've kept our promises for 175 years.
Hi, this is Sheetal Pandya. Vastu Feng Shui services are valuable for your home and business. Directions, calculations, and forecast prediction enhances your progress and helps to avoid any pitfalls. Using detailed research in developing commercial and residential land and building, Pallavi Ji helps you make the right decision. So, call Pallavi Chalauda today. एक राह और सही दिशा जो जिंदगी बदल दे.
The Golden Era with Anu Kapoor. आप सभी मित्रों का हार्दिक स्वागत है इस शो में जिसका नाम है The Golden Era with Anu Kapoor.
Dr. Mohan, thank you so very much. Once again, we're in the last segment of our conversation. A lot of individuals that I interact who've actually recovered, many of them have put their guards down as well. Some people feel that, we've gotten the treatment done, we've developed the antibodies now, and, they're not taking as much precautions that they should be. First of all, what would be your advice to them? And some of them have also started talking about the post-COVID side effects. I'd like to get your expert opinion on that as well.
Sure. So the current recommendations, even if somebody has had COVID, is to get the vaccine once it's available to you. Even when people must have heard about convalescent plasma, the treatment for patients with COVID.
Yeah.
So when patients got COVID, we checked their antibody levels, and they had to be above a certain level for them to be candidates to donate plasma. Because if their antibody levels were low, then that was not good enough to treat patients. So not everybody who has COVID has enough antibodies. And the routine labs that people get checked for their antibodies, they don't give them the level of antibodies. There are some labs who do, but they're very, very few. So, and even if you know the level of antibody, you do not know how long it's going to last. So the purpose of the current vaccine is that you get two shots. One is the initial shot, so that it primes your body that, okay, you need to fight this infection, generate some antibodies. And the second one is it rises the antibodies to a level where it is adequate enough, based on the studies that have been done on thousands of people, that if a person is exposed to COVID-19, that level of antibody is good enough to kill those COVID-19 viruses. I was talking to some of the infectious disease folks, who I know personally, and they're so busy seeing patients. Some of them they see close to 100 patients a day of COVID in the hospital, believe it or not, and they're pretty much parked themselves in the hospital. And they have seen reinfections, and they have said, I don't have the time to sit and write a paper right now. But I believe that this is a reinfection. Now, granted, this is all anecdotal, and this is not, scientifically being, prevalent all over the place. And people do say that it is less, but why give yourself a chance? So you should definitely, get the vaccine even if you're infected, if you have been infected with COVID-19.
And the second part of my question about the post-treatment side effects. A lot of people have started talking about pain in different parts of the body, different organs, and they've also started talking about blood clots. I'm sure you must be addressing a lot of those concerns of your patients as well. What is it that you'd like to guide our viewers?
So there's a term that has been coined for these post-COVID patients called long haulers.
Mm-hmm.
And so unfortunately, some of these patients who recovered from COVID-19, they have chronic fatigue, shortness of breath on exertion, some even memory loss. So they have increased risk for heart attacks, cardiomyopathy. Just like any other virus or infection, it can affect the heart muscle as well. And we have seen that, where the heart function becomes weak. And it takes time for that to get better on appropriate medications. So any patient who has recovered from COVID-19 and continues to have any symptoms, it may be something minor, like I said, about just fatigue or shortness of breath on exertion. So for example, if you were able to walk about a mile before COVID-19, and now you get tired just walking 2 or 3 blocks or get shortness of breath, you should see your pulmonologist, your cardiologist, and definitely at least your internist, your primary care doctor. There are now COVID recovery programs, which have been instituted in many hospitals, including hospitals here in New Jersey. So where patients who actually have symptoms post-COVID, they are actually enrolled in those COVID recovery programs. And then depending on their symptoms and depending on their conditions, they are treated appropriately, either with medications or physical therapy or rehab. That is very, very important, because if they do not seek medical attention, then those things can actually get worse.
Dr. Mohan, thank you so very much for joining us and sharing your expertise. Good luck with the book, COVID Slayers. I'm sure many more individuals who are watching this interview would like to reach out to you and would love to read the book. Is there a place where they can get this book from?
Sure, it's available on Amazon. It's in paperback and Kindle. And people who have Kindle Unlimited, it is free for them. So just go to Amazon and type in COVID Slayers. It's one word. And you'll see it. It looks like this. It's for everybody. It's for common man. I don't think you will find, it's not a medical book. It's the truth. You'll see some of the reviews, which I was very gratified to note. Some of those folks who have actually reviewed the book, a lot of them actually I don't even know who they are. Some of them are anonymous. But so far, people who have actually read the book, they've said it is honest, compassionate, and it's a real truth.
Dr. Mohan, thanks so much for joining us on Focus Live Season 3. Appreciate your participation.
Thank you very much.